I want to make a statement about the George Floyd death and mistreatment by the police, not to mention all the other things going on right now. But I tend to stay silent during times like this and just preach the gospel. I'm a pastor, and I make the statement as such, and as the pastor of a church in Houston, but mainly just as a Christian, as a follower of Christ, who died for all people and who made all people of equal worth and dignity. I usually stay silent just because there's so much noise out there, some of it good, some of it bad, as is always the case. But I do not want my silence for myself or for my church that I pastor to be interpreted as anything, as an endorsement of what happened, or as my being anything other than horrified, saddened, and extremely angered. I would say outraged by the little that I saw. I saw a couple minutes on video of George Floyd's neck being kneeled on by the police before he went unconscious and then died. I couldn't handle it. I mean, all I could see was my son Seth, who's 9, almost 10. Obviously, he's much smaller, but as a grown man, just, I saw my son. Well, what would that's God's son. That's someone's son. And God made this man in his image wonderfully. Psalm 139, Genesis 1, all over the scriptures. Yeah, the fact that he was cuffed, the fact that it was done, like Trevor Noah says in the Daily Show video that he did, just the fact that it was done so casually. They weren't trying to get him down and afraid for their lives, apparently. Just sitting there, he was pleading, kneeling on his neck, casually, it seemed, not in danger. The police not in danger at all, it seemed. And as Trevor Noah also perceptively pointed out, and painfully, the irony of the fact that these, by the very men that are sworn to protect people like George Floyd, the citizens of these United States, so horrified, so saddened, and had similar and even more vehement thoughts and feelings as I read Bryan Stevenson's book Just Mercy. And I wanted to throw it across the room a number of times as I read through it. And again, I think I was 20 pages shy. It was so hard to read. These things that I didn't think were going on. He talks about things happening in the 70s, 80s, 90s. I didn't think were going on in the States still in my white majority culture naivete. I've never seen anything like this. I've never heard anything like this. A clearly innocent man who was at a party being charged while a murder was happening, being charged with murder and being put on death row with no hope of parole. And then, of course, Bryan Stevenson, out of Harvard Law, a black man, grew up in, I think, Alabama. Instead of going and making 6-7 figures, chose to make a career out of representing those largely on death row who had no hope of good representation. And so this is one of his clients, this guy that he's talking about in the book. And it's a major motion picture if you don't want to read the book as well. Michael B. Jordan plays Bryan Stevenson. But just horrible injustice, and just the fact that you are in America able to be treated worse because of the color of your skin. It's not only unscriptural and an insult to all of us, to humanity and to God who made us, but it's illogical. I mean, why would someone be different because of the surface, because of the tone of their skin? Like Martin Luther King says, it's the content of the character by which a man should be judged. So just that injustice, and there's nothing that's talked about more and that God cares about more than justice in the Bible. And the fact that Jesus Christ died for all people, especially for the unrepresented, for those that are trodden on, is, as a Christian, as a pastor, but mainly just as a lover of Jesus, because he saved me from my sins, and his arms are open wide to any who will come to him, of all races, of all male, female, any age, any skin color, any ethnicity. I'm preaching through the book of Acts, and this next week we've been on Stephen, but the preliminaries this next week, he preaches to a bunch of people who just want to keep Judaism one race, basically, and to one people. And the gist of Stephen's argument is basically Jesus died for all people, and God has always been interested in going global with a relationship with him, with his salvation, and that happens through Christ. And Christ blows the doors off of having to keep the law punctiliously and having to go to temple to meet with God. Jesus is that place where we meet with God, and his arms are wide open, and he died for all people, and he made all people, and he made all people for himself, and he's come for us to reconcile us to himself. This is Stephen's message, and it infuriates the people who want to keep it to themselves, to one race. And so this is antithetical to the gospel, and it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. And I didn't want my silence to be interpreted as anything less. And I speak for myself. I could say alone, but I think I represent my church. I know that everyone in my congregation feels this way as well in Houston. And our hearts are breaking. We're praying. We as Christians ought to be not running from this, not putting our heads in the sand, not even judging. Just preaching the gospel, getting in there as best we can into the mess, because that's what the gospel is. Jesus, the God Almighty, he checked all of his benefits, left them in heaven, and came down to get into our mess and to take our mess upon himself. And that's what the gospel is. That's what the good news is that God is with us and is with us to stay, and offers a way for us to be reconciled to his Father through what he's done, through his goodness, not through ours. And so I just want to say to all Christians out there, get in there. Get in the middle of this mess and preach the gospel with your life and with your words, and stand for justice. God bless you.